Little impromptu video for you guys. So this past Friday I went to get in the car to start it up, to back it out of the garage down the driveway to give it a nice wash and wax leading into the summer driving months down here in Southern California. But as I got in and found to my despair, the interior lights are extremely dim and even flickering a bit, so that's where I realized I probably have an issue with the battery with this car. So thought I'd take the video here to kind of explain the problem, the symptoms that the car was experiencing, and again, bounce some ideas off you all that watch the channel here to maybe kind of help me troubleshoot what's going on, in addition to what I'll be doing this evening in the video here. So I got this car in 2018, and ever since then I've been rebuilding it, fixing it, modifying it, making it my own, and learning a lot about the car through all of the different repairs and modifications and upgrades I've done. But I'm still learning a lot about this car and the platform in general, so that's where I thought I'd make a video on this, just to kind of show maybe a few more experienced or other owners that have experienced something similar to this, and kind of get some feedback and ideas from you guys. So car is going to be completely dark, no lights on at all, because the battery is currently out of the car, and I'll get into that here more in a second. But as I said before, I went to go start it up to back this thing out of the garage, and well, the first thing I noticed was I got kind of like sounded like some like static noise sound coming from underneath the dashboard area where the glove box is. So it sounded like some like feedback coming from like an amplifier or something, or a speaker. And then I noticed the gauge lights, when they light up, they were kind of dim and then kind of flickering just a little bit, slowly but surely. And then at that point I didn't even try and start the car. I was like, okay, I need to check the battery voltage. And so when I went to go throw a multimeter on it, it was down to 9 volts. Tried to put it on my trickle charger, and the trickle charger wouldn't even recognize, or it was thinking there was a faulty battery. It wouldn't even recognize the battery because the voltage was below, I think the threshold's like 10 or 11. Normally I keep this thing on the trickle charger, that's why I have it. But this one time I just, through the craziness of life, I forgot to connect it up. And the other thing that plays into this is that my son loves climbing into this car. It's so heartwarming to have fun with him and play with him, just pushing all the buttons and stuff. And I think one of the days we did that, I left the glove box open, and the glove box has a illumination light, and I think that could be a factor in this as well. So that could have led to maybe an already weak battery from just being 4 years old. So this is the battery that I had in the car. It's an Optima Red Top Absorbent Glass Mat, or AGM battery. You can see the manufacturer sticker here, 6/2021. So battery is about 4 years old, depending on how you care for them and the storage of the car and everything like that. Sometimes they last this long, sometimes they last longer, or shorter, depending if you have a faulty battery. So I knew this battery was already, kind of possibly older on its lifespan, but whenever I drove the car, I never had any issues with like slow to crank, or I didn't notice any kind of lower than normal voltages on the gauge readout, especially like when the car is running. Typically you can expect to see like 13 or so volts with the alternator running and charging the battery. But I never experienced any of that. So this kind of came out of the blue, and so now it's kind of led me down the path of trying to troubleshoot this. So this all started on Friday, and that same day I tried hooking the battery up as a last-ditch effort to my trickle charger to actually get it to take a charge. And at first it would recognize the battery on my little, over here. So I've got this Deltran battery tender brand charger. Got this thing like on Black Friday several years ago, and it's been awesome. Love having it in the garage. But it would just connect and looked like it was charging normally, but after a few minutes it would throw a fault and start flashing green, indicating that there's like a battery issue, or it like isn't detecting a battery anymore. And that happens with these things because they have a threshold of voltage that they need to read in order to properly send power safely to charge a battery via the trickle charging method. So at that point, I kind of just had to bite the bullet and buy myself a new battery. So that's what is sitting on my workbench over there. So that is the new battery. Came from Summit Racing very quickly, so that was awesome. Ordered this thing on Friday, it got here Sunday midday, so that was pretty quick shipping for a very heavy battery, which is pretty awesome. So I took the battery out of the car, and I also took the battery tray out of the car. I'd never taken the battery tray out of this car, but I just wanted to double check that there wasn't anything suspicious going on underneath the battery tray, which is sitting on the ground over there. It's just a plastic tray that's mounted into the position with this kind of bracket that stems off the frame rail there with those 4 bolts. So I took that off, checked for any suspicious leakage, even though these AGM batteries aren't theoretically supposed to leak. Just want to make sure there wasn't anything obvious going on with some wiring here. Obviously there's way many more wires throughout this car than I can actually see, but like I said, just want to check that and sanity check myself. So I cleaned the battery tray. I'll be installing that here in a second to get the new battery put back in. And so the other symptom was when I first took my multimeter out and I read the old battery there on the left with my multimeter there, it originally read 9 volts, which was definitely really low and a sign of a not healthy battery. And then I tried to put it on a trickle charger, and I think I tried measuring it again Saturday, and it was down to 7 volts and 6 volts. So it just kept losing more and more power. So done some initial research, and there could obviously be a number of things going on, even though the car really haven't done anything a whole lot to the car here, aside from putting in the short throw shifter, which I'll get into in a second. So there obviously could be some type of parasitic drain that, you know, these cars are somewhat notorious for, or we could just have a failed battery. So I'm kind of rambling a bit, but that's kind of what has led me up to this situation. Thought I'd at least document it for you guys and kind of share this experience with y'all, and just kind of bounce some ideas off you guys and see if anyone has any thoughts. But the plan is, for the interim here to get going, is to get the battery tray back in, get the new battery installed in the car, and then obviously keep the trickle charger on it. But then whether or not I do it tonight or tomorrow, but to do like an amp draw test when the modules and everything should be theoretically off on the car. The amount of milliamps that the car draws should be below a certain threshold, and if you're above that, then you know a certain module or system in the car is not shutting off properly. So that would be the next step. But first step is to get the battery tray sitting on the ground over there. I kind of washed it off and cleaned it off a little bit, get that reinstalled back into the car. So just connected the battery back up. Car has power again. Heard whatever module was doing its thing back there. I don't know if that's the fuel pumps or something. Heard a few relays click up here. So I think the first step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut the door, and I'm going to turn the lights off in the garage here since it's dark, and I'm going to look for if the kind of driver or passenger reading light was left on, because it's just like those like switches. It doesn't have an actual like flip switch, or it's just a button, I should say, so it's hard to tell when it's in the on or off position. So I think that's going to be my next step here, and then might do the inline amp draw test now that the battery is connected. But in order to do that, you have to let the car sit for at least 15 minutes for all the modules to shut down, and I can pull up the Corvette forum thread that I've been referencing, because this issue has been documented many times over the lifetime of this car and the issues people have run in with it. But it's already kind of somewhat late, so I might tackle that tomorrow instead of staying up and waiting for this thing to go to sleep while I force myself to stay up. So we'll see here. I'm gonna shut the door and see if I notice any lights stay on in the car with everything shut. Alright, well, you guys can't see anything, but that's pretty much what I'm hoping for here, is because that means there are no lights on in the car anywhere. I checked the glove box light to make sure it actually shuts off when you actuate the switch when you shut the glove box. Don't see any reading lights on in the car. I know it's pitch black so you guys can't see absolutely anything, but I'm looking through the driver's side window now. Don't see anything on the dash or any lights on inside. No lights looking back towards the rear hatch area. So, you know, I think I got the car hooked up to the trickle charger. So let me flip the lights on here. So I got the car hooked up to the trickle charger just to make sure the battery doesn't die overnight, because that was a $270 battery. So I got it hooked up, and then tomorrow likely I will do the kind of amp draw test with the car completely in its sleep mode, and then I'll be able to figure out how many amps the systems on the car are pulling when everything should theoretically be in mostly like standby shut off mode. So for now it's basically like 11:30, so I'm gonna go to bed. Hopefully the car goes to bed, and then tomorrow we'll dive into this more. And if everything is inconclusive, we could have just had an old faulty sulfated battery that perhaps I didn't keep up with enough on keeping it on the trickle charger. So see you guys in the next clip, whenever that is. Okay, so it is the next day. The car has been sitting on the battery tender, no problem. It's listed as fully charged now. That's what the solid green light in the lower right corner there shows. So now with the car, you know, plugged up to power, I'm gonna actually disconnect the negative terminal and then hook my multimeter up in line with the battery. Alright, so I've got the multimeter with the positive terminal plugged into the standard port, not the 10 amp one, because I'm going to be measuring in milliamps, and then I've got the dial set to the 200M in the amperage dial indicator here, so we can measure milliamps to more accurately test the draw. So we're going to be connecting the black or negative multimeter lead to the negative battery post, and then the red to the removed you know, negative terminal wire coming from the car. Alrighty everyone, so after a little kerfuffle in the last clip, I think something funky was going on with my old multimeter. I don't know, I've had that thing for a while and it wasn't reading out correctly, so I went to Home Depot and I got a new multimeter just to make sure that I could read everything correctly. So I've got it hooked up to the 200M setting on the direct current amps. So I'm reading in milliamps right now on the screen. So I've got the battery disconnected from the car. I've got the positive lead on the multimeter to the negative terminal from the car, and then the negative lead from the multimeter on the negative terminal from the battery. And so car has been sitting disconnected now for well over an hour. I'd say probably an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And we're reading at a draw of 21.1 milliamps. So I'm gonna do some research, but I'm pretty sure that's normal. So that's good to see. And I've had the multimeter sitting on here for a while now. It automatically shuts off, but I've had it sitting on here for a while, and then I just kind of go back and turn it back on and periodically check like what is the amp draw at, and it literally hasn't fluctuated really plus or minus zero 0.1 milliamps from this 21.1. So I don't know. I'll do another reading when I get home from work today to see what this shows, to see if it changes at all. But yeah, we're just gonna go from there. Alright, so now it is evening of that same day, so I thought I'd check the amp draw one more time before I wrap this up and kind of provide my thoughts and conclusions on this whole little mini video here. Angle the multimeter here towards the camera so you guys can see this, because I'm just going to be holding the lead. So again, negative multimeter lead to the negative terminal on the battery, positive multimeter lead to the negative terminal on the car. So these definitely are not the easiest to hold, so you can, or to have stay in place. So it helped turn the multimeter on. My goodness, you tell it was a long day of work. Alright, so now we got it reading milliamps. Alright, let's try this again. 21.0, 21.1, which is the same thing it was reading this morning when I tried it. So, safe to say, I don't think we have any parasitic drain or draw going on right now. Alright, so I'm going to get the battery connected back up to the car, because my goal is to drive this thing into work tomorrow. And I probably left a text note on the video here, but that clicking back and forth sound when I connect the car is not a relay or a fuel pump, I'm pretty sure, without actually looking to confirm, but I'm pretty sure it's the multi-disc CD changer in the hatch area of the car, just going through its normal startup cycle. Back and connect it again. Do the positive terminal one more. Little cinch down, and then the last piece is I got to connect the battery clamp hold down device. Okay, so in a nutshell, what do I think was the source of the problem here? One, this guy was just an old battery on its way out. 4 years old, typical, maybe a little on the early side, but I think average lifespan for a acid-based battery, especially one in a car that this is my pleasure car. It doesn't get driven every day, and I do try and keep it on the tender, but this time I forgot to keep it on the tender. I think I had taken it off, and then just as well I was doing the MGW shifter install, forgot to put it back on. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, my son loves to climb all through the car here and just have fun with me, just kind of pretending to drive. So it's such a blast with him. He's not that old, but it's fun experiencing that with him. But I think through one of those times I left the glove box open, or even possibly I know for sure one time I left the glove box open because I remember coming out and be like, huh, I see the glove box is down. So pretty sure that was just kind of the final nail in the coffin for this old battery here, and that's what did it in. And it was kind of past the point of no return. Maybe I could have brought it to an auto parts store and they could have revived it with their kind of more powerful chargers, but because of the age, I thought I'd just replace it. So $270 mistake on my end for that, but at least it seems to be fixed right now, at least knock on wood. So tested the current draw multiple times with the car off, put the multimeter in line and got a pretty normal reading. I would say it wasn't like abnormally low, and it wasn't anywhere high or even close to being high, so it was good to see that. And the other cool thing, if you guys just, little kind of tiny tidbit of info, if you guys don't use, I'm not like an AI junkie, so to speak, but if you don't use ChatGPT, I definitely encourage you trying to use it, because I plugged in kind of my problem here, so you can see problem statement and the prompting to it, and it just walks you through all these different possible combinations, summaries, step by step. You can have an active conversation with it, like you're actually talking to someone that's educated on the subject. Obviously fact check things just because of the accuracy, but given this topic, it's pretty docile on what I'm trying to do here. So this is definitely what helped me to kind of get my bearings on how to diagnose this. So definitely recommend, not even just for the C5, like any Corvette or any maintenance for cars, things around the house I use it for, yada yada. It's extremely helpful, and then it kind of tells you what the typical like amp draw is for the car once it all shuts down and all the modules shut down, and then possible troubleshooting, like what could have went on. So you see glove box or hatch light. So glove box light stayed on because it was left open, so on and so forth. And then you can see normal sleeping draw is 20 to 30 milliamps. Us being at that 21.1, we were pretty much right at the bottom end of that range. So really helpful if you don't use one of the large language model AI tools. Doesn't even have to be for anything crazy. I just do it for basic, searching and kind of optimized Google searching, and you can fact check it, and it just really helps to make things a lot more efficient. So, curious to hear your comments. If you guys have any other thoughts, or if you've run into similar issues with your Corvette and your C5 regarding the battery and whatnot. I did this same thing for my C55 Mercedes that I had 4 years ago. The power seat module on that car was causing the battery to drain, and I just ended up I just disconnected the seat and then disclosed that to the buyer before I sold the car. So had a little bit of experience doing this in the past, had to replace the alternator on that car, so on and so forth. So without rambling on too much more, thank you guys so much for tuning into the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, learned a little something. Definitely gonna have some more videos coming out soon. Probably the short throw shifter video, if it's not out already, will be up next, and then probably some videos on all of the cool 3D printed parts I've been working on over here for the car. So yeah, thanks again guys, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.